The next day, Dad went back on the road. Laine stayed with Grandma and Grandpa and her cousin Josie at the farm. Josie was Aunt Sue's daughter, but lived there with Grandma and Grandpa. She had to go to school that day, and Laine went off with Grandma to the store she owned in the small town called The Store. Grandma could not leave without her lipstick, and offered a piece of peppermint gum to Josie and she. Later, they would shut the store down with too many gallons of milk lent out on credit to poor ranch families. Everyone wanted to go into Billings where the groceries were cheaper, but at that time it was up and running. From behind the counter, Grandma gave Laine a pair of unicorn earrings, and Laine flipped through the coloring books with pretty Native American girls on the cover. Outside on the glass was a picture of animals smoking, a duck, a raccoon, and a goose, that said, "Looks just as stupid when you do it." Laine imagined Grandpa was probably smoking at that moment as he drove his truck to Laine's flying service. Grandma and Grandpa differed on many levels. Grandma Mariella was born from a wealthy family who owned horses, and her uncle started Laine's flying service in the 1930s. Grandpa Bob was more laid back. He liked Irish whiskey and sausages and smoked like a steam vent to his last day, even while carrying his oxygen tank. He always kept a styrofoam cup of coffee on his dash as he drove to work, which sometimes wobbled but never seemed to fall over. They married at 19 and were in the same class at St. Francis Catholic School. When Grandpa got home that night, they were all sitting around the dining table. Grandma said, "Here's your steak, Bob," slamming it down in front of him. Laine looked over at the overhang where 50 years of birthday and anniversary cards stuck out like chipped teeth. She glared out the window at the spot underneath the clothesline where Patches had chased his own tail so many times it became a dugout. In that house, her grandparents had raised 6 children, Dad being the oldest. In undergrad, Laine took a class on Irish literature and fell in love with the story of MACHA'S curse. She saw so many similarities between it and her family. In the story, the Ulstermen were cursed with labor pains in the height of battle. When Maeve's army invaded Ulster to capture the Brown Bull, the Ulstermen were as useless as a bunch of drunks, leaving the lone hero Cuchulainn to defend Ulster alone. In Laine's family, there was a curse of alcoholism. Grandpa's dad, Andrew, owned the Shamrock Bar in Billings and was one of the founders of the Billings chapter of Alcoholics Anonymous. He even had a crawl space in his garage attic where he let drunks come to sleep off their stupor. Josie's mom, Aunt Sue, had 10 DUIs and still rode her scooter to Denny's where she worked as a waitress. But she was a nice person and seemed more real. And then, of course, there was Dad. "Don't let that animal in this house," Grandma said when Josie tried to sneak in one of the kittens. Back then, people dropped off sacks of kittens, unwanted and feral, at the farm. Laine thought Grandma was mean, but later she realized she was strong and assertive. The way she had to be, having raised all her children and a grandkid on the side. Even though it seemed like everyone was going in different directions, Grandma provided that nexus for the family unit, which kept them in a semi-orbit. When Laine was younger, Grandma led her around on the horse's back. She wondered where that horse went. Laine thought of Grandma as Macha because in the tale, the woman Macha had to suffer for the man she loved after he made a terrible mistake. "Dare not tell a soul," she told him, "about my secret." But the next day he boasted in the court, "My wife can run faster than the horses." The Ulstermen laughed. "Men run faster than women," they said. "It's a proven fact." But little did they know Macha was not an ordinary woman. She was an otherworldly creature who came to her husband and started to cook and clean in his house, and eventually lay down as his wife, and made him promise not to tell her secret. "Really she can," her husband said. "Prove it," they said, tying him to a tree and fetching Macha. They threatened her, "Do it or else we'll kill him." She pleaded with him. She was 9 months pregnant. In the end, Macha outraced the horses, but at the end she died in labor pains, giving birth to twins. Her last breath was a curse on the Ulstermen, that they should feel labor pains in the height of battle. Men in labor was just a little too hard to imagine, so Laine just imagined they were drunks. Grandma seemed like Macha for her sacrifice to the family unit. She's very religious, the loudest singer in the pew at their Catholic church, and she took her wedding vows seriously. In that way, Macha also seemed to represent Mother Earth, who bears humankind so graciously, even when she's often not tread upon so lightly. She bears the labor of love, like a long-suffering grandmother. Thanks for watching my video, guys. I'll be back with another video next Wednesday. Until then, ciao!